Hi everyone, this is a very short video, hopefully, just continuing our discussion about primitive data types in Java. Here, as you can see, I've set up a variable which is of integer type, and I've labeled it John Age. And here we've got another variable of double type, and I've just labeled it John Height. And here I'm assigning some data to those two variables. Now, one question that comes to my mind is, what is the biggest value that an integer can store in Java? There must be a limit, right? And the same question would go for a double. I'm going to show you a way where you can find out quickly the maximum and minimum values of integer types in Java. And I'm just going to use system.out.println, and I'm going to type in integer with a capital I dot max underscore value. So this line of code here will display to the screen the maximum value that the integer data type can store. And I'm just going to copy that line of code and do the same for min value. So let's find out what is the maximum value that an integer can store and what is the minimum value that an integer data type can store, or an integer variable. So the maximum value that an integer data type can store is there. Whoa, that's a big number. And the minimum value is there. So when I say that John's age is a variable that will realistically store the age of a human being, is the integer data type going to be able to handle this data? And the answer, of course, is yes. The range of the integer data type is pretty big, and it can easily handle values like 36 or 44. And let's suggest that I live until I'm 103. Will the int data type be able to handle the value 103? Yes, it will. No problem at all. In fact, some people would argue that we're wasting memory by reserving this amount of memory for small values like 44. That's really a waste of memory, isn't it? And this becomes an issue with big computer programs, and we're going to come back to that idea in a moment. Just while I was setting up this video and I was thinking about the maximum values of integers and doubles, I'm just going to change this capital I integer to capital D double and just see what this does. What is the maximum value of the double data type? What is the maximum value that a double can store? And what is the minimum value that a double can store? Okay, so let's run that. Well, the maximum value that a double data type can store is massive. It's 1.797 blah 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 to the power 308. That is a massive positive number. And the double data type can handle that number. And the minimum number is 4.9 to the power minus 324, another massive negative number. So can doubles handle my height, which is 165.2? Yes, easy, no problem. Just going to take a step back to integers for a minute. And let's just another idea has just come to my mind. I'm just playing here. I'm going to copy that number, and I'm going to assign that number to John's age. Let me just do that again. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to assign that to John's age, and I'm going to add 1. Ooh, I get an error. Ooh, so that number is out of range. If I'm using an integer data type to store John's age, and I assign that number to be John's age, cannot handle it. That is just one. That's one too many. If I change that back to 7, everything's fine. If I make that a 3, no way. It's out of the range of the integer. So that's just something to think about when you're creating computer programs. Okay? I'm just going to introduce one more thing in this very short video, and the rest is really for you to investigate by yourselves as you become more familiar with Java. We've just decided, let me just change that back to 43. We've just realized that the maximum number for an integer is this huge number here, and the minimum number is this very large negative number. So when we say to Java, please set aside an area of memory for an integer, it will set aside a big lump of memory which can cater to these values. And really, we are wasting memory, especially when our computer program is dealing with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of variables, and each of those variables is of type integer, for example. So I'm going to do something here. I'm going to change John age to be data type short. And let me just put a comment into my code here and explain the range of the short data type. The range is from minus 32,768 to 32,767. Any whole number in this range can be dealt with by the data type short. Okay? So if I'm saying that John age is equal to 43, the short data type will be able to handle that. Okay? If I put in a value here of 33,000, we're going to get an error. Whoops. Cannot convey from int to short. So Java is immediately saying, well, an integer can handle this number, but a short cannot. A short's range is this range here. It cannot handle 33,000. If I type in 32,767, the error will go away because that's at the end of the range. But if I type in just change that to 8, we get the error. And it's saying, listen, this really is appropriate for the integer data type. It's no longer appropriate for short. Before I finish, I am just going to introduce one more primitive data type, which is long, and it's really up to you to go and do some research into what long is. Okay? So already our list of primitive data types is growing. We have longs, we have shorts, we have ints. Let me just come up with something else. John, dad, age. I'm just coming up with lots of rubbish here. We have longs, we have shorts, we have ints, we have doubles, and there are 4 more. Currently, there are 8 primitive data types in Java, and it's really your role as a programmer to do some research and figure out what you need to use to make your programs work.